Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And a welcome to you all. It is March 29, 2023, to put us, I don't know, on the map someplace, time-wise. We're going to do something today that we don't usually do, which is focus on Harrisburg. That would be the state capital, of course. I don't know why I don't focus on Harrisburg a lot, mostly because as I told one of the state representatives who works there last time I saw him, how in the name of God can you stand to be in that cesspool? He smiled. I think of it as a cesspool. And that's why my guest today, who I suspect wouldn't necessarily disagree with that assessment, we'll find out, is Rabbi Michael Pollack, who is the executive director of something called the March on Harrisburg. And we're going to find out about that right now. Rabbi, hi, how you doing?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on, and great to talk with you.
Okay. Is it a cesspool in Harrisburg?
Oh, absolutely. I would go much further and meaner and more descriptive with my language. It's a swamp. It's a cesspool. It's a den of thieves. It's a house of lies. Oh, it's basically a building where the work of special interests is accomplished and the work of the people is ignored.
Oh, my God. This is going to be dispiriting, I can tell.
But hopefully I'm listening.
That's right. So I want to say you are not somebody who, like myself, rails and moans and tears my hair, but doesn't necessarily act. You do all the, groaning, moaning, screaming, but you act. I want to point out that I loved your the biography because it said that your hobbies include convincing politicians to not be corrupt, long marches through the Pennsylvania countryside, and sitting down in inconvenient places in the state capitol. So you are somebody who believes in good old-fashioned civil disobedience, marching, nonviolent confrontation of those who hold power.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as March on Harrisburg, we've marched well over 290 miles across the state, from Philly to Harrisburg twice, from Lancaster once, from York once. We've done dozens and dozens of nonviolent direct actions, and we've lobbied thousands of times. And we really do believe in forcing that encounter through nonviolence, where we make the corruption, we make the corrupt officials, the obstructionists especially, encounter the faces that they're hurting, encounter the faces that they don't see because of those bribes, right? The effect of bribery is to create an in club and an out club. And we, the people, are on the outs. We're not giving the bribes or taking the bribes. We're not having fun in the Super Bowl luxury box together. We're on the outside. And so there's this culture of indifference to all of us. And through nonviolence, we pierce that culture of indifference. We pierce the bubble, and we force that encounter, and we demand a response of sympathy and of humanity and of service. And it's incredibly effective. Nonviolence has a well-demonstrated track record around the world. And here in Pennsylvania, it has made the impossible possible and moved things forward a good bit.
Well, I'm going to, suggest that you give us some specifics about that, because I don't know. But when you say bribes, my guess is you're talking about things. I mean, bribery is a crime, but you're saying bribes when, in fact, I think this is legal, isn't it? The bribery that goes on in Harrisburg is not technically bribery, because they've decided, the legislators, that it's fine, right?
100%, right? If you look up the word bribe in any dictionary, it's going to say something like giving an item of value to a public official, and that's a bribe, and with the intention of them doing something for you. But our U.S. Supreme Court and every other level of government has kind of defined bribery into a box that's just not practical in any real world situation. So, a bribe is only, I, lobbyist X, am giving you this item in return for you taking this action. And then there needs to be a documented receipt of that transaction with you taking the item and then you doing the action and the whole transaction being recorded. So to prove a bribe is almost impossible. You need basically an FBI sting operation to prove one. You need somebody wearing a wire. You need everybody to say very clearly, I am giving you item X in return for action Y. And the person says, I am receiving item X and I will perform action Y. And that's just impossible to prove. So what you have in real, in real practical terms,
I'm sorry, Rabbi, go ahead.
Sorry. So bribes in Harrisburg are things that to any common sense, rational individual looks like a bribe. And in fact, embedded in our law, it's very contradictory language. The definition of lobbying in Pennsylvania includes giving gifts to public officials to influence their position. That's written into our
bribe.
law.
Okay, so that's okay.
It's a bribe.
They have legalized bribery that
Absolutely,
they are on the
100%.
receiving end of. And you suggested earlier things like sitting in fancy dancy suites at sporting events and trips to Europe, I imagine, and God knows what else. But it's just flat out corruption. And here's what I want to ask. We're so divided as a country right now, and we think of, Republicans and Democrats. And we think, at least we do on this program, think of Republicans as the bad guys, usually. And Democrats, more often, the good guys. Are there any political party differences in this particular stench that you are dealing with?
Not really, and that's sad to say, but it is the reality. Corruption is systemic. It's the ocean that everybody is swimming in. And so whether you're a Democrat or Republican, if you're running for higher office, and the higher the office, the more this becomes true, you need to raise money to run your campaign. And that's the first place where bribery happens. You need to, if you're running for a state senator, it's hundreds of thousands to millions. To become governor, it's tens of millions. To become president, it's billions. And that money comes with strings attached. And that's just the basic setup for running for office. And so we found that it doesn't really come down to party affiliation. It comes down to power. And the rank and file, the lower you go, the more concerned they are with these issues. The higher up you go, the more trapped they are already. And so the more non-reactive they are to this. But across the board with voters, these are unanimously popular issues across all party lines and across all lines of division.
So this is a way to unite this fraction
100%.
populace that we can agree on this. Yeah.
Oh my God, we've had champions. We had champions in the legislature who were actually at the Capitol on January 6th. On this issue, we find support across the board. We have support from the Greens to the Libertarians and everyone in between.
Well, then, if it's that broad-based, why the hell can't we do something? I mean, I know you're doing something, but this is obviously, as you say, systemic, so entrenched, hard to dislodge, and the very people that have to dislodge it are the people that are enjoying it.
Oh, absolutely. And so that's the beauty of nonviolence. The goal is to make the political establishment do what they would rather not do. They've made it incredibly clear many times over that they would rather not take care of this problem. Because as you said, they like going to the Super Bowl. They like going to the European wine tasting tours. They like going to Pebble Beach to go golfing and fundraise, from Wawa and Sheetz and low-wage employers. It's tough, but through nonviolence, you force the encounter, you build up the pressure, and you get results. We win. It's not easy by any stretch of the imagination, but it's something that the politicians don't have any answer for. There's nothing they can say to defend their own corruption, so they try to avoid, and then as soon as they have to confront, they cave, and then they end up doing the right thing. Knowing that they have to at a certain point. You just can't they can't delegitimize their own position so much. Yeah.
It seems to me that Pennsylvania has the distinction of generally being thought of as one of the more corrupt states by virtue of having almost no laws governing anything ethical that the legislators might do, by the very fact of the ridiculous size of the legislature, of what they are paid, their ridiculous per diems, the whole thing. Every time I read some kind of thing comparing states, we are definitely right there up at the top of corrupt government.
Oh, 100%. We're bottom 5 in the country on most rankings. We have no limit on campaign contributions at the state level. We have no limit on gifts, which is just the most direct form of bribery. It's when you just gift a politician something. We have no limits on side jobs. So you were saying our legislators, they have great salary and per diem. It's over $100,000 starting salary, incredible per diem, healthcare that's incredible, phenomenal pension, access to state travel and reimbursements, and they are also legally allowed to have side jobs, which is just a really good way for a corporation to just pay them directly. Speaking of Pittsburgh, former Speaker Mike Turzai was a practicing corporate attorney while he was the Speaker of the House. And then, there's other ways too. We have a revolving door problem where you can, there's really very few limits on hiring legislators to go work as lobbyists, which just creates an incredible conflict of interest. And then we, of course, have the same dark money problem that the rest of the country is dealing with too. Just no limits and no transparency there.
We have a big election coming up here. The person who has run Allegheny County is term limited out. He is the county exec for a long, long time, and we're going to get a new one. And the guy who's leading, supposedly, is our county treasurer, who, there is the FBI was investigating him at one point. He's a pay for play kind of a guy. And I am looking at, despite the fact that as county treasurer, he ran year after year with no primary opponent and no opponent in the general election, he raised over $1 million in those years from donations from people for his campaigns, which, as I said, he was running against nobody. And the media has looked into what he spent this money on. And my God, there's meals, $123,000 in the last 8 years. $120,000, cars, $50,000. You can't even, for a guy who's not even running this, and this is legal. This is legal, right?
100% legal, right? The things we talk about, they're not scandals, they're routine, right? They're not loopholes, they're the law. This is legal, what you're describing, and common. And it's gross.
You see, this guy, the thing is, the people he's running against have nowhere near the money he has. Nowhere near the money. And money often, we're not seeing television commercials for any other candidate. They don't have money. He's got money. And this is, it's so clearly corrupted here right now that, and I don't know how, I don't know. The average person doesn't follow this stuff, doesn't know.
I'll say across the state, our experiences in every place, conservative, liberal, red, blue, doesn't matter. People can't quite name it. Some can, of course, but people know what's happening. They know, I don't trust them. I don't trust DC. I don't trust Harrisburg. They're corrupt. They're crooked. They're looking out for themselves. It's all about the money, the campaign donors. And maybe they can't spell out the mechanics exactly. But there is that deep sentiment amongst the public. When polls go out of, do you trust the government to do the right thing? Under 20% say yes at a federal level. In Pennsylvania, the number's down to about 11%. We don't trust our government, and that's a huge, huge problem.
Well, if we don't trust our government, we don't trust much of anything anymore, and that's frightening. Because once you don't trust, once people don't have trust in the basic kinds of institutions, civil society doesn't even seem to be a possibility. Democracy certainly doesn't seem to be a possibility. So even by telling people about this corruption, it's like you're feeding the very thing that, this distrust that then can take, ugly turns, where people aren't rational about it. I don't know. It seems, I'm looking on at all of it and becoming very, very fearful, frankly.
100% and agreed. And the trust is what holds everything together, right? Without trust, you just can't function as a society. If you imagine just even a family unit without trust, it falls apart. Right? Trust is what it's all about. We are running low on trust. Our job here is to tell the truth about why, and just point out the reason why exactly our trust is so low, and to do something about it. And if you can't acknowledge the problem, you can't bring in the solution. You can't heal a wound if you can't acknowledge the wound. So our role is to acknowledge that wound, to tell the truth, and then to do something about it. Right? We're not just going around and saying, "Here's this corruption. Woe is us. Look at how it affects everything. Healthcare, infrastructure, environment, etc." Our goal is to tell that truth and then say, "Okay, here's the democracy movement we're organizing. We're going to go to the chair of the House State Government Committee, and we're going to sit down in his office until he deals with these problems, or until he just gets the hell out of the way and retires," which is what happened in that case, and keep moving things forward. We need to claim our power as human beings, in the system.
I agree, but I'm thinking the picture in my head. For instance, just in recent weeks of Israelis in the streets and of the French in the streets. Americans, I don't know what gets us off our duffs in big enough numbers that sustain, themselves to have an impact. So I think the corrupted politicians, if a group of 40 people show up in Harrisburg, that doesn't do much. 40,000 would do something. But, you're not talking about numbers like that when you do your marches. How do we get people off their duffs and realize that is the way they have to exercise their power? They can do it through the voting booth, but they also have to do it by showing the numbers of them in ways like marches, protests. How do you do it?
Absolutely right. Most of us kind of limit our activism or our change making in the world to voting. Right? We're told that's kind of how you express your voice, and that's 2 days a year, at the most. Then there's the other 363 days a year. What are you doing? And at that time, it's movement building, it's organizing, it's protesting, it's direct actions, it's going and having these difficult conversations with legislators where you say to them, "I don't trust you. You need to earn my trust. Here's how you can do that." And then following up and pressure. And, with 40 people, that's actually about the numbers we have on our marches. We've been able to get the gift ban out of its committee in the House twice. We've been able to almost get a full vote on the House floor. We caused a huge panic in September over that. But that's not enough, right? That's what we can do with what we have. And what we could do with a whole lot more is a whole lot more than that. And how to get people involved is to draw them into the movement, to organize them, to build community, because it's those relationships within the movement that keep people coming back and get people out of bed on a rainy Tuesday morning to, go walk 15 miles to the Capitol. And it's having clear pathways to victory and good strategy and good tactics, and just growing the movement and connecting with other movements and just pushing forward together, and refusing to take one step back. It's good old-fashioned nonviolent campaigning. It's good old-fashioned organizing. And in this country, we're incredibly propagandized. I'm not sure we really understand to the full extent of how much the messaging that we're surrounded in keeps us at home and depressed. And we can pierce through that. And the greatest antidote to a whole lot of depressive propaganda is a spark of hope and action. And when people jump in and take that first step, their outlook changes. There's hope, there's joy, there's action, there's movement, and that's how we get it going. And the propaganda.
So I had a little pin in the '60s, and it still holds true. Don't agonize, organize. And it's
beautiful.
It's yeah, exactly. It's so true that the minute you start taking action, individually, even calling your you start to feel like something can be done. There's always hope when you're taking action. So your group is called March on Harrisburg. So how do people hook up with you and get involved? And when's the next actual march on Harrisburg?
Yeah. First, just to jump back to your last point, I think we're using the slogan right now, don't panic, organize, which is the same idea. And it's this idea that, there's a Simpsons line from 30 some years ago where Homer says to his daughter, Lisa, you don't need to think. That's why we have politicians. They do our thinking for us. And that's kind of the attitude that a lot of people have, which is, I'm just going to go vote. I'm going to send my signal to the system one time a year. And that's it. I don't need to think. I don't need to do anything. And it's nonsense. We need to be active, and getting active is incredibly beneficial for us as a whole, but also for every individual who's active. It does wonders for their mental health, for everything. It's just a good feeling. And so to get active and march on Harrisburg, we have our website, marchonharrisburg.org. Please come, sign up, jump in. We're doing right now a 25 town tour across Pennsylvania. So wherever you are in Pennsylvania, we'll be coming to a place near you over the next few months, everywhere from Erie to Philly, from Pittston to down to Westmoreland County and everywhere in between. So please come on out. We're going to be teaching the mechanics of corruption. Here's how it works. Here's what it looks like. Here's how it affects us. And then, here's how we can do something about it. Here's the movement. Here's the actions to take. Here's the people to meet. Here's the things to learn. We were constantly offering courses and doing leadership development because we need, the saying is this movement can't just depend on one Martin Luther King Jr. It needs many Martins. That's the phrase in the Poor People's Campaign would use. Many Martins. That's what we need.
And are you're affiliated? Excuse me. You're affiliated as well with the Poor People's Campaign?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a statewide tri-chair here in Pennsylvania for the Poor People's Campaign. We're active in 46 states across the country. Here in Pennsylvania, it's a campaign of base building organizations that are representing various fronts of struggle. So March on Harrisburg, we take care of democracy and corruption. Our friends Put People First Pennsylvania, they work on healthcare. ACT UP works on housing and healthcare too. Coalition to Abolish Death by Incarceration focuses on mass incarceration, so on and so on and so on. There's about a dozen and a half groups together. And we support each other across these struggles because we understand deeply that, Exxon doesn't just have a fossil fuel plan. They also have a wage plan, and they also have a position on foreign policy. They also have a position on infrastructure. The corporate class is very united in their interests, and they don't just focus in on one front or another. It's everything forward together. And so that's how we approach it as well. We fight for immigration as much as we fight for democracy. On and so on.
Oh, guys, we got to realize that, united, the people united can never be defeated. That is true.
Right. We have the people power.
We have the people power. We don't have the kind of power that Exxon has, But there's so many more of us if we would just get together. And what's so wonderful about this is, as Rabbi Pollack said, this goes across all of the usual political divisions. Most Americans know that the government has been corrupted by money, and we need to take it back. So, march on Harrisburg.org. Get yourself involved. It'll make you feel good. I got a broken leg, so I can't march, Rabbi. I got an excuse from my doctor right now. But I take it that you are not a pulpit rabbi.
Not so much. Not so much. No,
like, how could you? Yeah. It seems pretty all encompassing. Interesting, though. Interesting. And wish you a happy Passover coming up. I thank you so much for this work you do. And I hope to heck that people who are listening to you now will be motivated to get involved. So thanks a million. Rabbi Michael Pollack, march on Harrisburg.org. Let's do it. Rabbi, thanks a million.
Thank you so much for everything you do. Thank you for having me on. Great talking with you. And to all of your listeners, I'll just close with the thought that it's not enough to be angry. We're all angry. We're all bewildered. We're all frustrated. The challenge is to channel that into the actions, into the organizing. And if we do that, we win. And I really wish I could convey the confidence to your listeners that comes with being part of the movement, the confidence that you gain. But all I can say is just jump in and you'll gain that confidence as well, because through action comes hope. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. All righty. There you go, guys. That's like a lifeline. Like he just threw us all a lifeline to sleep better at night, to stop wringing our hands so much, to be part of the solution, to get actively involved. Oh, God. I'm sorry. Somebody just told me that there is an active shooter at Laurel Highlands High School. God, we're just... Okay. All right. We need to act. You know, speaking of the... Can I read something to you? I thought I never write to people whose work I not ever, but I rarely do. Somebody who has written something that just, I think, nails it. Dead on nails it. And I read something late last night. And I would like, with your indulgence, to read it to you. It is on topic, given we've just heard there's an active shooter at an area high school. Okay? Let us... These are the words of Alexandra, I'm not Petrie, or Petrie, not sure how she pronounces her last name, who writes for the Washington Post. And I love this. Here I go. These are her words. I will not inject my own. I can think of nothing worse than children in school sitting at their desks reading banned books. A horrible thought. All those children solemnly holding books in their hands and reading them and putting the thoughts in those books into their minds. Learning the wrong lessons and growing up the wrong way. Growing all the way up. Getting to grow up and think thoughts about those improper things they read in unsanctioned books their whole lives, maybe. Horrible. I can think of nothing worse. Children who get to be 6 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and beyond. Children who get to grow and have children of their own and call their mothers or forget to call their mothers. Children who get to see the places they always wanted to see. And children who get to be the best aunts in the world. But one afternoon in 2023, they read a book I didn't approve of. I can't imagine anything more horrible. Something must be done to protect the children. We must stop at nothing. I can think of nothing worse than children seeing art that is improper. Statues, paintings, vile, horrible. Children passing pictures from hand to hand, looking at them, getting ideas about art. All those living children looking at those inappropriate statues. Horrible. Imagine them all leaving the classroom safely and growing up and maybe becoming artists themselves and not thinking that what they saw was unspeakably obscene. Growing up and having barbecues and throwing surprise birthdays and cooking the best steak you ever ate and burning simple pasta in an inexplicable way and getting into fights on the internet and living to be 90 years old, and all the while having seen that improper art. I can't imagine a worse fate. We must act now. I can't think of anything worse than children reading history and feeling bad. Imagine children going home alive to their parents and complaining that they were made to feel bad by reading about the horrible events of the past. Can you think of a worse thing? Imagine that happening to a child. Imagine being a parent and seeing the door open and your child come through it unharmed with a complaint about a textbook. Unthinkable. Awful. Frightening. We must pass legislation. I can't think of anything worse than children going to a library to hear a drag queen read a story. Children sitting there alive in a library, hearing a story, surrounded by books and glitter, laughing. Children having a pleasant time, feeling as though there was nothing to be afraid of and going home happy. Can you think of anything worse? No. We must stop this at once. There must be laws. We must take action. We must protect the children from this awful fate. Can you think of anything worse? Are you thinking of something worse? Don't worry. I will not think of it. I will not legislate about it. I will not give it a moment's concern. To protect the children, I will stop at nothing. At absolutely nothing. There it is. Incredible. Oh, Chris. Never mind. Supposed to be a prank call. Okay, okay. This is your bad, my bad. We should not disseminate stuff from unreliable sources. Somebody told me that. Okay? So, your bad, my bad. Hope we didn't cause anybody, God help us, a moment's concern or fear. Okay. I'm sorry about that. Really, I often talk about Turner Classic Movies because I sort of disappear into them. Reliable, comfortable. It's like, to me, it's like meatloaf and mashed potatoes and gravy. It's just sort of, it's old school comfort. And I know that there's something on Turner Classic Movies tonight that I did want to alert you to, because it's an extraordinarily good film, impactful film, and historical record. It is all of those things. It is why it won an Academy Award for Best Documentary back in God knows when. It is by the extraordinary documentarian Errol Morris, and it is called The Fog of War. If you have never seen it, or even if you have, boy, is this something worth watching again. I remember when I first saw it, I was so, I'm going to say blown away, which doesn't rise to the, the level of what I want to convey. The star of it is essentially the architect of the Vietnam War, Robert McNamara, Secretary of Defense, I believe under Kennedy and then Johnson. Not sure about the Kennedy part, but I think, yes, Kennedy, and then stays on with Johnson. Robert McNamara. And when I marched against that war in the 60s, Robert McNamara was, to me, the most evil. I hated him. I had the strange experience years. Well, I don't think he was the Secretary of Defense anymore, but I ended up sitting next to him on a commercial jet flying from New York to Boston. And he was just, taking a commercial. That would never happen today, right? Taking a commercial flight. I sit down and I look, and it's friggin' Robert McNamara. And I didn't berate him. I didn't say anything. I just sat. And I thought to myself, I can't believe this. I can't believe I'm next to Robert McNamara. At the time, I was in my very early 20s. I was having a lot of, anxiety about flying. I hadn't flown in some time. And during the flight, he noticed he noticed I was sitting oddly. I was sitting with my knees pressed up against the seat in front of me. I hope not to the point where I was annoying the person in that seat, but sort of stuck next to him with my feet off the floor. I had my knees supporting my lower legs so that my feet were on the floor. I suppose my hands gripping the armrests. And damn if Robert McNamara didn't turn to me and say, "Are you afraid of flying?" And I told him a little bit. I know it's absurd, but I just can't bear, I told him, I just can't bear putting my feet on the ground because it gives me a false sense that I'm on the ground. when under what seems like ground is all that air. I said, I just don't want to pretend that there's ground beneath me. I mean, there's air beneath me. And I remember him smiling and thought it was a little odd, I'm sure, but he was slightly amused by it and told me that, went through the whole thing, safest form of travel, blah, blah, blah. He's flown, blah, blah, blah. He never said boo to me about anything other than that. But he was very nice. Anyway, that's just a digression. Later on, when this movie came out, I was, as I said, just blown away by the power of this movie. The fog of war. As I recall it, and I'm going to watch it again tonight, as I recall it, it's mostly an interview that Errol Morris does with Robert McNamara. Doesn't sound too compelling, does it? But, oh my God. And it is compelling in part because Robert McNamara turns out to be willing to be honest. You see him cooperating, struggling, trying to answer questions, and you can see how troubled he is. I got to watch it again because it's been ages, maybe, 10, 15, 20 years. And maybe 20 years, easy. And because I have a sense of him as a human, maybe I was more inclined to then see him. Oh, that's a guy sat next to it. But, also knowing how many people died in this useless, insane horror. It is so worth watching. I don't know what you were intending to do tonight, but if you got the time, Turner Classic Movies tonight at 8. Okay? I can't think of a better use of your time. Wanted you to know that. Listen, this John Weinstein stuff that I, mentioned with Rabbi Pollack. If this guy wins the county executive primary, I mean, he still's got to face some, God knows, Republican I don't know. I mean, I might end up, if he goes through and wins the primary, I might end up voting for the goddamn Republican just to keep him out. He is representative of everything that is wrong. The amount of hoarding of money that he does not need, over $1 million, he's gotten out of people. For what? He was never he didn't have to, he just had his seat. We gave it to him. This is where we are the problem. We are complicit. He never had anyone running against him in the primaries, in the general. It's one of those guys where you went in to vote and there was just one name. That's the only protest you could make is, not voting for him or writing somebody in. But he was in, and he kept raising money. He used it to belong to the Rivers Club. He used it to wine and dine who knows who. He used it on cars. He used it on travel. He used it. And the people who gave him that money were doing, in large part, what Rabbi Pollack was talking about. They were currying his favor. It was a form of bribery. Hey, you helped me out here. Remember, I helped you. It's why you're seeing his damn face all over the place. He's got money. He's got so much, it's unbelievable. Michael Lamb, who's running against him, who also has held office almost as long, I think, as the auditor, right? Michael Lamb, and I don't have it here, during the same period, didn't do that. And I don't think he had much opposition. He didn't use his position to amass a war chest so that he could wine and dine and be wined and dine. And you look at like how much he spent on how much he had, and then when he spent it on like he'd do a fundraiser to raise a little more money to maybe, put up a commercial here or there or a flyer. It's like a tenth, if that, of what Weinstein. He is part of the it's the current form of pay-to-play politics. It stinks, it's corrupt as hell, and it is not indicative of the people who are running against him. I am not saying vote for Michael Lamb or vote for Sarah Inamarato, but they don't come trailing that stench of corruption. And they have been public servants. So they have been capable of cashing in as John Weinstein has. And they chose not to, suggesting they have more integrity, frankly. Okay? Please, here's another way to act. Share this information. Don't, because people know his name. It's all over. You can't get away from it. You write checks to him. I say this a million times. People end up voting for him because they always have, because there's no one else to vote for, and there he is again. You've got to talk to everybody you know who votes and tell him, no. I don't care if he's got all the money. I don't care if it's a slam dunk. No. And the same with Zappala. We've got the ability with this election coming up to knock these old boys who think they own a public office, to knock them out. Zappala, good God. And there have been things surfacing about him that stink. I mean, his record stinks. His record stinks, but not many people bother. His whole idea of what constitutes a district attorney's prerogatives are skewed to punishment instead of, helping people. Rehabilitation and he's for stuff in the jails, okay, with poor people. That's Zappala. And there have been recently, I guess, at the courts, there have been, and I wish I sort of knew more about this, but there have been instances where prosecutors have refused to withdraw, prosecutors working under Zappala have refused to withdraw when cases clearly show that there's no case. And they insist that they keep torturing this poor soul, whoever it is. God, I wish I had. And I don't have it. Damn it. Oh, yeah, maybe I do. Hang on. So there's all of these, here's what he's done. And people talking about ethics. So he's been in that position for 6 terms. He's got a very good person running against him, Matt Dugan. Dugan's your guy. So anyway, earlier this month, in two separate occasions, prosecutors representing Zappala's office have refused to drop cases where there was no point in continuing. In one of the cases, I'm looking for this, the judge is saying, okay, so everything we've got here in front of us shows that this guy can't be convicted. So he looks at the prosecutor and says, and the prosecutor still refuses to withdraw the case. So the judge says, hey, I want to talk to both of you, the defense lawyer, in my chambers. And he calls them into the chambers and asks from the Tribune Review and asks them, why the heck would we still be having a trial? And the Pala guy representing the district attorney said, well, Your Honor, it's the season. And the judge, Judge Sattler, looked at him and said, what? You mean spring? No, said Zappala's guy. It's election season. And, given the endorsement, which is to say, given that even the county Democrats did not endorse him, given the endorsement and the race, I don't have the discretion to dismiss any case. And Judge Sattler said, that is ridiculous. And so the trial went forward. The prosecutor called no witnesses, presented no evidence. It was a sham because they didn't, I don't know, it is mind-boggling. And of course, the defendant was found not guilty on everything. There were a number of counts. And the very next day, another assistant prosecutor said the same kind of thing when asked by a defense attorney, hey, look, this doesn't make any sense. Let's just do this or whatever, just come on, you guys, drop this. And she said, this is Heather Schultz, assistant DA, we don't have a bunch of discretion on gun cases. And since it's election season and Zappala not getting the endorsement, well, we have even less. And so that thing went to trial. The defendant was acquitted. And if you tell ethics people, people who know about ethics about this, they say, what? This is unbelievable. It's unethical for a prosecutor to make decisions on a person's life and whether a trial goes forward or doesn't because of political consideration. It also costs the taxpayers money, jurors, their day, time, and effort. And that's all to apparently, I don't know, he didn't want somehow Dugan to say, and he's been dropping. I don't know. And Dugan, who's running for the job, says, trying somebody without any evidence that's prosecutorial misconduct. This is weaponization of the justice system. It's dangerous. And this is why we need reform. And you get reform by not voting like an automaton, like you have year after year for Zappala and for Weinstein. Get them out. Please, I'm begging you. What the heck? I'm sorry, I've got some weird noise going on here and I can't figure out where it's coming from. That is so weird. I feel like I'm losing my mind. You hear that noise? No, you don't. You're going to think I'm crazy. You hear that? I don't know where it's coming from. God, that was weird. Okay, never mind. Here. I just want to catch up on your emails. I can see we're getting close to the end here. Oh. Milton writes, for those who don't have access to Turner Classic Movies or any of the several platforms where Fog of War is available, it has been serialized for free viewing on YouTube. Wow. Okay, but better to see it. I hope you can see it. It is, okay, free on YouTube in 15-minute bunches. And okay. I really do hope you'll watch that. I really do. It's extraordinarily well done. Oh, God. I didn't share with you something that Kurt wrote in last week, I think, and I thought it was really good. It's when we were talking, remember when we had a three-way conversation with, I think it was Ray and Clarence, and I don't know what we were talking about. It was just, and Roger, right, Roger, it was like Roger had talked about white, what's a white, privileged, cis, white, heterosexual guy? Do we have any standing, he was saying, to even have an opinion about anything now? We're being told if you're not, whites are told to shut up about anything having to do with black people. Straight people are told, shut the hell up, you don't know. I mean, not by everybody, but I'm saying there is this, like, you gotta be the person to live in it, to be able to talk about it. And if you're a member of the, now detested majority, apparently, the cis white Christian person, male, Roger's feeling like, what am I don't know whether I can talk anymore. And Kurt wrote this in, and I didn't have an opportunity to share it with you, and I wanted to. Kurt is a gay man. He's married to a gay man. And he says this, and I think it's so on the money. The problem straight white males face with identity is that they never bothered to form one. Their identity was formed to contrast with those they are not. Their identity was formed to contrast with the fact that they're not female, they're not black, they're not gay, etc. And that kind of definition of your group is weak tea. Kurt then says, I get it too. He says he feels, that he is now, understands what Roger's feeling, like you don't have standing. And he says, I get it too. I was once this radical, pro-feminist, gay activist. But in activist circles today, I'm looked at as just an old, privileged, cisgendered white guy. And then he says, you just gotta roll with the changes. Easier said than done, huh? Hey, thank you so much for joining me. Tomorrow, we've had a lot of guests this week. Yeah, I do have another guest tomorrow. I think they're in the last half hour of the show. You know what? I don't remember. But this involves personal, harrowing personal story that has become a book and a play, and will be produced at Prime Stage Theater. And I've been reading the book, and yow. So we will have the author on. Okay, that's all I'm telling you. And have a nice day today, I hope. And I'll talk with you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.